The first note said I was being watched, and the worst part was, it was in my handwriting. It was a cheap yellow sticky, crooked on my apartment door, like it had been slapped there in a hurry. I stood in the hall with my grocery store name tag still on and my keys half turned in the lock, staring at those words until the stairwell light timer clicked off and put everything in shadow. I turned the light back on and read it again. You're not safe at night. My name is Riley Dawson. I'm 27, I lead the night shift at Heart and Field Grocers in Lakewood, Ohio, and I don't scare easy. I know the sound of a compressor dying, the pitch of a freezer that's about to trip, the way a door sounds when the latch doesn't set right. I check the locks twice, sometimes 3 times. It's not paranoia, it's part of closing. But this note, the handwriting was mine. Round R, flat Y. The way I press harder on the last letter like I'm trying to make a point. I took it down and brought it inside, because leaving it there felt like leaving a piece of me on display. The place smelled like old brick and laundry detergent. I set the note on the counter, next to a chipped mug and a basil plant that was trying its best under a tired window. I did what I always do when I can't explain something. I started small. Key rack, 2 keys present. Chain lock, latched. Deadbolt, turned. Window latches down. Everything looked normal. Still, my stomach stayed tight, like I'd swallowed a fist. I wanted to call someone, but my list is short. My brother, Evan, would drive across town at midnight if I asked, but he had an early exam. My best friend, Jas, works mornings at the Common Cup Cafe and would text back fast, but I could already hear her voice. Riley, this is weird. We should take it seriously. And I wasn't ready to admit I was rattled, so I did dishes, wiped the counter, lined the note up with the tile grout like that would make it behave. That's when a thought hit me so hard I had to sit. What if Tyler left it? Tyler Grant is my ex. He was the kind of boyfriend who brought you soup when you were sick and then reminded you 3 times how thoughtful he was. When we split, it wasn't fireworks. It was colder. Him standing in my kitchen saying I was rigid about my routines, me handing back his spare key and replying, "Good night, Tyler." He'd done tricks before. Pranks, he called them. Little scares to make me loosen up. Once he hid behind the stairwell door and jumped out when I came home. I dropped my groceries, milk everywhere. He laughed. I didn't. I told myself he wouldn't sink to sticky notes. Then I looked at the handwriting again and felt this strange sinking thing. Even if he did, why would it look like mine? I put the note in a drawer, locked the door again for good measure, and tried to sleep. I lay there listening to the radiator tick, counting breaths like I was clocking out registers. Slow, steady, check, check. In the morning, I took the note with me to work. I didn't mean to. It was just in my hand when I grabbed my jacket. At Heart and Field, the lights hum, the produce spray spits every 16 minutes, and the bakery case fogs up if you stare at it too long. The world is loud there. It usually scrubs the thoughts out of my head. I showed the note to Jas on her break at the cafe across the street. She has this way of looking at you like she's taking a photo and developing it later. "That's your handwriting," she said. "Like, exactly. I know. You leave notes to yourself sometimes, right? Shopping lists, reminders, not threats." She turned the paper around and squinted. "What if it's not a threat? What if you wrote it, I don't know, half asleep?" "I don't sleepwalk." "How would you know?" she asked, not mean, just simple. "You live alone." I rolled the paper up and unrolled it again. "You think it's Tyler?" Jas took a sip of coffee and shook her head. "If it's him, he's cruel. If it's you, you're scared. Either way, you should change the locks." "I already did," I said, "last fall." "Then talk to Mrs. Benton," she said. "She has records on everything. You know she color codes her calendar? She's basically a human clipboard." Mrs. Carla Benton is our building manager. She keeps a small office off the lobby that smells like lemon cleaner and old mail. I knocked after my shift and held up the note without any context because context felt like admitting I'd lost track of something inside my own life. She adjusted her glasses, read it, and handed it back. "If it was a prank, it's a bad one." "I changed my locks in October," I said, just wanting to make sure there haven't been issues. Mrs. Benton opened a drawer, flipped through a binder, and pinned a page with her finger. "We had someone jimmy the side door last week," she said. "Didn't get past the vestibule. I had a locksmith reinforce the plate and added a second camera. Here." She slid me a photocopy of the incident log. Date. Time. 1:38 a.m. Attempted entry. No apartment doors disturbed. Thanks, I said. Can I keep this? She hesitated, then nodded. Just don't post it. And if anything else happens, you tell me. I don't like surprises. Me either, I said, and for the first time that day, we understood each other. Back upstairs, I set the log next to the basil plant, then pulled out my phone. If there's one thing I trust, it's a list. I opened my call history to double-check the delivery driver from last night. That's when I noticed something that made my skin lift. 3 outgoing calls at 3:11 a.m. to an unknown number. 40 seconds, 14 seconds, 9 seconds. I don't make calls at 3:11 a.m. I'm either dead asleep or watching a video of raccoons stealing cat food behind our dumpster. I don't talk to unknown numbers. I block them on sight. I clicked the number. It didn't have a name. No voicemail. I screenshotted the log and sent it to myself like I needed proof later. I told myself there could be an explanation. Butt dial. Wrong contact. System glitch. Then I opened my messages and saw a draft I didn't remember typing. Backdoor? No recipient. Just 2 words and a question mark, sitting there like a cough I swallowed and forgot about. I put the phone down and walked my apartment again. Front door secure. Check. Back door. There is no back door. It's a 1-bedroom with a stubborn galley kitchen. Windows locked. Check. Under the sink, a sticky pipe trap. In the bedroom, the closet door that doesn't catch because the frame is old. Nothing out of place. Except the feeling. I decided on something small and practical. I walked to the big box store on the corner where you can buy a lamp and a bag of oranges and a tire pump in the same aisle. On the clearance shelf sat a 2-camera security starter kit with a dented box for $59. It promised night vision and easy setup, which usually means it will fight you for an hour and then pretend it was your fault. I bought it anyway. Back home, I set one camera on a bookshelf facing the front door and the other down the hallway toward my bedroom. The app asked me to name them. I typed door and hall and ignored the part of my brain that wanted to write, "Please don't make me see something I can't unsee." I called Evan because hearing his voice is like putting on a hoodie. Warm, familiar, a little frayed. He's 5 years younger, but he acts older when I'm like this. "You okay?" he asked. "Define okay." He waited. He waited. "I found a note on my door," I said. "It looks like I wrote it." He didn't laugh. "Could you have?" "I don't think so. There are weird calls on my phone at 3 a.m. "Call your doctor," he said, "and change your habits for a week. No screens after midnight. No energy drinks. Eat actual food. I'll stop by tomorrow." "I'm not a child. I know," he said gently, "but there's no medal for being alone." I opened my kitchen drawer where I keep my boring money, the cash I use for bus fare, laundry, emergency pizza. I count it sometimes the way other people scroll Instagram. It was $20 short. I could have miscounted earlier. I could have pulled a 20 for gas and forgotten. I could have, or maybe someone else's hands had been in this drawer. My chest went tight again. I shut the drawer, wrote $20 on a sticky and stuck it to the fridge like a crime scene label. Night came. I made pasta and ate it standing up with the TV on low. Every sound had an edge to it. A siren 2 blocks over, a laugh from the sidewalk, the soft scuff of boots on the stairs that made me think of my neighbor, Marco Vega, the EMT. He's quiet, works nights, boots always tracked in salt. First week I moved in, we both reached for the lobby door at the same time and did that too close shuffle. He said, "Sorry." I said, "It's okay." We've been a polite nod ever since. Now, every time his boots tapped past my door, a little voice hissed, "Possible suspect." It wasn't fair. But fear isn't fair. It just circles what it doesn't understand. I set my phone on the dresser, screen down. I did the dishes, turned the chain lock, tried to read. The camera app glowed on my nightstand like a watchful eye. Around 2 a.m, I woke up to the soft ping of the door camera. Motion detected. My heart knocked once, hard. I grabbed my phone and tapped the thumbnail. The hallway was empty. The timestamp blinked 2:02 a.m. I told myself, buildings move. Heat expands pipes. Old wood breathes. I put the phone back down, lay on my side, and stared at the shadow line where the hall meets the wall until my eyes burned. Morning made everything look stupid in that familiar way morning does. The basil looked greener. The note in the drawer was just paper. I brewed coffee strong enough to scare the spoon and told myself I had blown a weird day out of proportion. At the cafe, Jas raised her eyebrows like a question. "Still weird," I said. "Call your doc," she said. "And, Riley, don't be a hero. If you feel off, text me. I can run across the street in like 10 seconds. 12 if there's a stroller." At work, I tried to count registers like the notes had never happened. Drawer 1 balanced. Drawer 2 light by 18 cents, gum. Drawer 3, the late cashier who forgets to log her coupons. The back door thumped in the wind in that way that makes you think someone's there every time. I double-checked it, then triple-checked it, then told myself to stop. The day stretched. I stocked canned tomatoes. I smiled for customers and hid yawns. 6 hours in, I felt normal again, the way you do after a scare when the world forgets to stay dramatic. Then, during closing, my phone buzzed. The camera app. Hall motion detected at 3:07 a.m. last night. That didn't make sense. I had been asleep at 3:07. Maybe the app sent it late. Maybe the Wi-Fi hiccuped. I told myself I'd review it after shift. I tucked the phone away and focused on balancing the safe. By the time I got home, my brain was chalk. I wanted a shower and silence. I wanted to forget the word note ever existed, but the app's red dot glowed like a mosquito bite you're not supposed to scratch. I sat on the edge of my bed, opened the hall camera, scrolled to 3:07 a.m., and pressed play. The video showed my bedroom door frame and the slice of hallway. The apartment was dark. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I watched myself, me, step into the frame. I was wearing the old gray t-shirt I sleep in. My hair was messy. My face was wrong. Not scared. Not angry. Just blank, like the lights were on, but no one had stepped all the way inside. I watched myself walk down the hall, pause at the front door, slide the chain, turn the deadbolt, and open it. I leaned forward like I was listening to something in the hallway. I stood there for almost 40 seconds, still as a photo. Then I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, slid the chain, walked back toward the bedroom and out of frame. The video ended. I didn't remember any of it. My first thought was stupid and sharp. You left the door open. My second thought hit harder. If someone was watching you, they didn't have to break in. You let them in. I wanted to run, to call Evan, to call Jas, to bang on Mrs. Benton's office door and say I need help. Instead, I sat there listening to the rush in my ears and did the one thing I could control. I opened a notebook and started a log. Night 1, note on door. You're not safe at night. Morning, unknown calls at 3:11 a.m., 40s, 14s, 9s. Evening, camera setup, $59. Night 2, motion alert, 2:02 a.m., false. Morning, drawer cash, short $20, unclear. Night 3, 3:07 a.m., video shows me opening door, staring into hallway, no memory. I wrote it down because writing is how I anchor things. If it's on paper, it's real. If it's real, I can do something about it. Around noon, there was a knock. 3 soft taps. I froze. Knocking felt suddenly like a trick. I checked the peephole. Marco stood there in his navy EMT jacket, hair smashed on one side like he'd slept in a chair. "Hey," he said through the door. "Sorry, Mrs. Benton asked me to check your smoke detector. Battery sweep?" I opened the door 2 inches with the chain still on. "You okay?" he added quickly, eyes kind in a way I hadn't expected. "You look a little pale." "Just tired," I said. "Night shift." He looked up at the ceiling, at the little white circle with the red test button. "I can hand you a battery if you want to do it." "I can handle it," I said, like we were talking about something bigger. He nodded once, slow, like he heard the part I didn't say. "I'm on edge." He slid a small 9-volt battery across the threshold like a peace offering. "Have a good one," he said and left. His boots thumped down the stairs. I watched through the peephole until the hallway was empty, then closed the door and took 3 deep breaths with my forehead against the wood. That night, I propped a dining chair under the knob, even though I knew it wouldn't do much. I set my phone camera to record a time-lapse facing the bed because I was out of cameras and out of excuses. I told myself it was overreacting. I told myself the video would catch nothing and I'd feel silly in the morning. I didn't feel silly when I woke up. I felt watched. Not by a person. By the space itself, like the air remembered where I had stood. I reached under my pillow for my phone and my fingers brushed paper. I went cold. I slid my hand out slow and pulled a folded note into the light. Cheap yellow sticky. My handwriting. You left the door open again. My whole body went quiet, like the second before a fire alarm. I looked at the door, at the chain, at the bolt. Everything was shut. The chair was still wedged under the knob like a bad idea. I checked the door camera. No motion overnight. I checked the time-lapse on my phone from the nightstand. The frames flicked by fast, my chest rising and falling, the slow turn to my side, the covers inching up. Then a blur of movement. My own arm sliding under the pillow, a shape tucking something flat. I stopped the video. I didn't need to see myself do it again. I sat there with the note in my hand and did the math out loud because the quiet was too loud. If I wrote this, I don't remember. If I didn't write this, someone was in my room. If the camera didn't catch anyone, then either the camera missed it or... I stopped because the next word tasted like metal. Or I'm the one missing it. I texted Jazz. Can you talk? She answered, 10 minutes. Meet at the cafe. I dressed like I was going to war with my own apartment. Shoes, jacket, keys, bag. I stood in the hall and locked the door, then took a picture of the locked door because proof is a small god I still trust. On the way down the stairs, I passed Mrs. Benton. Battery sweep go okay? She asked like it was a test. Yes, I said. My voice sounded normal. That scared me more than anything. At the cafe, Jazz slid me a muffin without asking like a mom who knows you won't eat unless she makes it easy. I put the notes on the table between us. She didn't touch them. This is beyond weird, she said. You need to see a doctor. I'm not broken, I said. It came out sharper than I intended. I didn't say you were, she said. But sleep stuff is real. My cousin's sleep cooked once, like actual eggs. Didn't remember. What if you're doing things? Like writing warnings to myself? Like opening your door at 3 a.m, she said softly. I saw the video. Jazz took that in. Then we make a plan, she said. Cameras in the bedroom. Alarms on the door. And you call your doctor today. I'll cover you if you're late to your shift. I swallowed. Okay. And Riley? She added. Stop blaming yourself for being scared. Alarm systems are for when you don't have all the information yet. I walked home slower than usual because the world felt tilted. On the second-floor landing, I ran into Tyler. Of course I did. He leaned against the railing like he'd been waiting for an audience. Hey, Riley, he said. Long time. Hi, I said. I reached for my pocket out of habit, checking for my keys. He smiled at that, small, knowing. I was in the area. Thought I'd say hi. You still using that cheap chain lock? I can help you fix it if you want. I'm good, I said. I'm late. He glanced past me toward my door. You still check it like 5 times? Some habits, right? I didn't answer. I moved past him without turning my back. He didn't follow. He didn't have to. His point had been made. I know your patterns. Inside, I locked the door and leaned against it. I wanted to cry or scream or do something dramatic to match how off-kilter I felt. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote, Afternoon. Saw Tyler in stairwell. Offered to fix chain. Felt sick. Do not give him anything. Then I taped the second camera to my dresser with blue painter's tape because elegance was not the goal. I angled it toward the bed. I opened the app, hit record, and set my phone to do not disturb. I ate leftover pasta cold. I folded laundry. I watched the basil and tried to decide if it was thriving or failing because I needed a question with an answer. Evening slid into night like a dimmer switch. The building got quiet in waves. TVs, then dishes, then footsteps. The last footsteps were boots. Marco's, probably. I was tired enough to feel brave and brave enough to feel tired. I brushed my teeth, set the chair under the knob, checked the lock, turned off the light. The dark pressed against my eyelids and stayed there. I thought about the notes, about my own hand writing things I didn't remember, about Tyler's smile and Mrs. Benton's log and Jazz's steady voice, about Evan saying there's no medal for being alone. Sometime after midnight, I must have slept. The kind that doesn't feel like rest as much as a soft fall. I dreamed of doors that opened to more doors, of hallways that looped back to themselves, of a voice that sounded like mine whispering, check, check, check. I woke before dawn. The room was blue and quiet. My mouth tasted like sleep and fear. I reached under my pillow on instinct and my hand found nothing. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I checked the door camera. No motion. I checked the hall camera. A single ping at 2:14 a.m., just a flicker, like the lens had blinked. My phone had a new draft in messages. Don't trust people who knock. No recipient. Just those words and my flat, careful script. I stared at it until the letters blurred, then backed out without saving. I didn't need another note to carry around. On the kitchen counter, I lined up all the pieces because that's how my brain works. Note 1, you're not safe at night. Note 2, you left the door open again. Draft text, back door? Draft text, don't trust people who knock. 3 a.m. video, me opening, then closing the door. Unknown calls at 3:11 a.m. $20 missing. Tyler in the stairwell. Helpful. Mrs. Benton's log. Someone tried the side door last week. All roads pointed to one thing I didn't want to put into words. There is a hole in my nights, and something is slipping through. I was still staring at the list when I realized my pillow felt too flat. I unzipped the case like I expected a confession to fall out. A third sticky note slid onto the sheets. Same paper, same pen, same stubborn handwriting that pressed hard on the last letter. You left the door open again. Not a copy, a second one. The same warning, twice, like my brain had been knocking from the inside. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't call Tyler or Marco or anyone. I did what I always do when I'm scared. I documented. Then I turned the page and wrote, in block letters big enough to make my hand ache. Today. Call doctor. Tell Jas everything. Keep cameras on. And underneath, smaller, a line I didn't plan, the kind that rises up on its own like a bubble in a closed jar. When the first doctor you call says earliest appointment is 3 weeks, you realize real life isn't a TV show. No urgent montage, no instant answers. Just you, your phone, and 3 weeks where you're supposed to act normal while your nights have holes in them. Jas didn't like that. She found me stocking the pasta aisle at Heart and Field that afternoon, earbuds in, muttering about inventory counts. They can't see you until next month, she asked. 3 weeks, I said. She frowned like that was a personal insult. Call another one. I did. 4 more. And 2 weeks. 3 weeks. We'll put you on a cancellation list. Jas crossed her arms. Fine. Then we control what we can. Cameras stay on. Door stays locked. You text me when you wake up and when you go to bed. I'm not 12. You're not safe, she said, her voice low but sharp. Until we know why you're doing things you don't remember, you're not safe. And I'm not playing the I wish I'd done more game. I didn't argue. Not because she was right, though she was, but because I didn't have the energy to convince her I was fine when my own handwriting kept saying otherwise. That night I kept my routine tight. Dinner at 10, dishes done, locks checked, bolt, chain, chair, cameras armed. I brushed my teeth for the full 2 minutes, not because I cared about plaque, but because brushing is a fixed thing and I needed fixed things. I lay down and opened my notebook, the one with the growing list. I added a line. Night 4, no new notes yet. Don't jinx it. I woke to my phone buzzing on the nightstand, not the alarm. A notification from the camera app. Door motion detected, 3:07 a.m. The timestamp was the same as the night I'd opened the door before. My stomach did a slow, ugly turn. I tapped the alert. There I was again. Gray t-shirt, blank face. This time I didn't open the door. I just stood there, fingers on the chain, breathing like I was counting seconds. 40 seconds, maybe more. Then I stepped back, locked the bolt tighter, and walked out of frame. I didn't remember any of it. When I told Jas over coffee, she didn't blink. It's sleepwalking. Has to be. I've never. You live alone. How would you know? By noon, I was standing in the lobby asking Mrs. Benton for more copies of the building's incident logs. She pulled a fresh sheet, tapped the top. No entries since last week, she said. Quiet as a mouse. Even at night? She raised an eyebrow. Especially at night. Not much happens after midnight unless it's you coming home. That was meant to be a joke. I didn't laugh. That evening, I was halfway through checking the freezer stock when my phone lit up with Tyler's name. I hit decline. He called again. Decline. On the third ring, I answered. Not to talk, but to end it. Stop calling me, I said. I'm worried about you, he said, and his voice had that fake concern, the kind that comes with an agenda. You don't sound like yourself lately. I'm fine. You're checking locks in the middle of the night, Riley. I could help. I don't need your help. There was a pause, and I could hear him smiling through it. Still stubborn. I like that about you. I hung up. My hands shook all the way through the frozen vegetable restock. That night, I found another note. It wasn't under my pillow this time. It was crumpled in the bathroom trash, half buried under a tissue. Same yellow paper. My handwriting. Don't trust people who knock. I stared at it so long my eyes blurred. I had to have written it. But when? Why? And why throw it away instead of leaving it where I'd see it? I added it to the log, my pen pressing hard enough to dent the page. 2 days later, it was money. Heart and Field's registers have to balance down to the penny. That's my job at closing. And on Thursday night, drawer 4 was short $47. My shift. My register. The manager gave me that thin smile that says, I'm not accusing you, but I kind of am. You sure you counted the drops, right? He asked. Twice, I said. We should check the logs. He didn't bother. Just wrote me up and left the form on the counter for me to sign. Jazz was on shift in the cafe, but she must have heard about it because she came over during her break and stood beside me while I signed. She wouldn't, Jazz told him flatly. Check the cameras before you put that on her record. He sighed. Fine. The footage showed a late-night customer slipping a gift card into his pocket after I turned to grab his receipt. I'd been right there. I should have seen it. But in the video, I was looking past him, like something over his shoulder had my full attention. That night, I was hauling trash to the dumpster when I ran into Marco in the stairwell. His jacket smelled faintly like antiseptic, his boots leaving wet salt marks on the steps. You all right? He asked. Yeah, why? You're pale. I almost laughed. You're the second person to tell me that this week. Hydration helps, he said, and grounding. 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. What? It's an EMT thing. Brings people back when they're spinning out. I nodded, filed it away. I still didn't know if I could trust him, but there was something steady in the way he said it, like he'd said it to a lot of people in worse shape than me. The 5th note didn't come from my apartment. It came from work. I was stocking the cereal aisle when I spotted something tucked into the back of the shelf, behind the oatmeal boxes. Cheap yellow paper. My handwriting. Back door. 2:14 a.m. My skin prickled. The back door at Heart and Field has an alarm that sounds if it's opened without the code. I asked the manager if the alarm had gone off. He checked the log. Blipped once 2 nights ago. Faulty sensor. No one was there. I told myself I'd check the cameras when I got home, but when I went to pull my jacket from the break room hook, something small and folded fell out of the pocket. It was another piece of yellow paper. This one was different. The ink wasn't fresh. The edges were worn, like it had been folded and unfolded a dozen times. And it wasn't just writing, it was a scan, a photocopy. The image was my own signature, big and slanted, across the bottom of a short note. Stop watching me. I didn't remember writing it. I didn't remember scanning it, but it was my handwriting, my name, my lines. I put it in my notebook between the first and last page and sat there in the break room until the end of my shift, staring at the dent in the linoleum and thinking, if I'm leaving messages for myself, I'm not getting them in time. And that was somehow worse than if it had been someone else all along. Jazz didn't waste time. The day after I found the photocopied note, she came over with a reusable grocery bag that clinked in a way grocery bags shouldn't. Inside, 2 more secondhand cameras, rolls of painter's tape, and a box of cable ties. We're upgrading, she said, setting them on my counter like we were about to build a war room. I already have 2. Now you have 4. 1 for the door, 1 for the hall, 1 for your bed, and 1 pointed at your desk. My desk? She shrugged. You keep finding notes. Let's see where they're coming from. It took an hour to set up. Jazz insisted on testing each camera by walking in and out of frame while I checked the feed from my phone. She labeled them with strips of masking tape. Door, hall, bed, desk. By the time she left, my apartment felt smaller, like the corners were watching me. That night, I went through the ritual. Dinner, dishes, locks, chair under the knob, camera app open. I kept thinking about the photocopy, how something can be yours and still feel like it doesn't belong to you. I fell asleep fast. I must have been tired enough to skip the restless tossing. When I woke, the first thing I did was check the feeds. At 2:53 a.m., the bed camera caught me sitting straight up. Not startled, just vertical, like a puppet on a string. I swung my legs over the side, stood, and walked out of frame. On the desk camera, I came into view. I pulled open the top drawer, took out a pad of yellow sticky notes, and began writing. My head didn't tilt like it usually does when I'm thinking. My hand moved fast like I'd practiced. I tore off the note, placed it face down on the desk, and walked back toward the bed. The bed camera showed me lying down and turning onto my side, still, breathing evenly. When I woke for real, the note was on the desk where the video showed I'd left it. I turned it over. Don't let him in. 3 words, same handwriting. My handwriting. I tried to picture myself writing it, but all I could see was the blank-faced version on the screen. That afternoon, I called Evan. "You're not imagining this," he said. "I'm coming over." He showed up with an overnight bag and that older brother, even though he's younger energy he gets when he thinks I'm in trouble. He made himself at home on my futon, setting his phone on the coffee table and his sneakers by the door. "Tonight I'm here," he said. "If you get up, I'll know." We watched a movie and ate frozen pizza. Around midnight, I started feeling heavy, my limbs lead thick. "You okay?" Evan asked. "Just tired," I said. "Weird tired." Half an hour later, I felt it. A sudden shift, like the room tilted. A faint smell. Pennies. My ears buzzed. "You're staring," Evan said quietly. "I think I'm fine." "You're not," he said, already standing. "You zoned out for like a minute." He handed me a glass of water. "Drink. Sit." The next morning, we checked the footage. At 1:18 a.m., I sat up, swung my legs over the bed, and walked to the door. I slid the chain, opened the deadbolt, and stood with my face inches from the door for 20 seconds. Then I closed it, locked it, and went back to bed. Evan's voice on the recording, "Riley, you're scaring me." My voice, "I'm fine." Flat. No inflection. "That's it," Evan said. "We're going to the ER." Riverside Medical Center is 20 minutes away, bright with that too clean smell that burns your nose. The triage nurse took my vitals, then asked why I was there. "I think I'm sleepwalking," I said, "but I'm leaving notes for myself and opening my door." A few minutes later, Dr. Amelia Ford came in. Calm, measured voice. She asked me to describe everything from the first note to the night before. I gave her the whole story, minus Tyler, because that was a separate problem, and I didn't want it diluting the medical part. She asked about other symptoms. Headaches, odd smells, gaps in memory during the day. Evan jumped in. "She gets this look like she's not all the way here. And she says she smells pennies." Dr. Ford nodded slowly. "That's called an aura. It can happen before certain kinds of seizures." My stomach dropped. "Seizures? I'm not shaking." "Not all seizures look like the ones on TV," she said. Temporal lobe seizures can cause automatisms, automatic behaviors, like walking, unlocking doors, even writing. You can be partially aware or have no memory afterward. She explained parasomnia, how it can overlap with seizure activity, especially at night. How stress, irregular sleep, and other triggers can make episodes more frequent. "So I'm writing to myself in my sleep?" I asked. "It's possible," she said. "We'll do an EEG and MRI to be sure." The tests were scheduled for next week. For now, meds, a sleep routine, and safety measures. ER copay, $150. Prescription for the first month with insurance, $18. Evan insisted on paying the pharmacy bill. When we got back to my building, Tyler was leaning against the wall by the mailboxes. "Riley," he said, like we'd just run into each other by chance. "We should talk." "Move," Evan said, stepping between us. "Just wanted to make sure you're okay," Tyler said. "You've been acting different." Marco came through the lobby right then, still in his EMT jacket. He stopped between Tyler and Evan, looked at me. "You good?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. He glanced at Tyler, then back at me. "If you're not, you know where to find me." Tyler shifted like he'd lost the upper hand. "No hard feelings," he said, backing toward the door. That night, Officer Dana Bishop called. Evan had reported Tyler's repeated appearances in my building. She wanted details. "If he's not breaking in, I can't charge him," she said, "but I can warn him about harassment." "Do it," I said. Evan stayed one more night. I didn't get up. Or maybe I did, and the cameras just didn't catch it. That uncertainty was its own kind of exhaustion. When he left in the morning, he said, "Don't wait for another note to take this seriously." I promised. But promises are easier than follow-through. 2 nights later, I was alone. I'd just finished locking up when the desk camera caught me writing another note in my sleep. When I played the clip back, my skin went cold. It wasn't small, neat handwriting this time. It was big, angry strokes, like I was carving the words. "He's lying." No name. No context. Just those 2 words. And for the first time, I didn't know if it was about Tyler or someone else. The he's lying note wouldn't leave my head. I carried it to work in my jacket pocket like a cursed coin, touching it every so often, as if the meaning would change. It didn't. It just sat there, heavy and wordless. Jazz read it on her lunch break. "You think it's about Tyler?" she asked. "That's the obvious choice," I said. "But my brain also writes, 'Don't trust people who knock,' and half the time I'm the one knocking." "Maybe it's about something else," she said carefully. "Or someone else." That night, Jazz came over again. We sat with mugs of coffee, scrolling through weeks of camera footage on fast forward. Most of it was boring. Me sleeping, turning over, once scratching my nose for 10 straight seconds like I was fighting invisible lint. Then Jazz said, "Pause." On Hall Cam 2 weeks ago, there was a clip I'd skimmed past before. It was me checking the front door chain, tugging it, frowning. I took it off, looked at it in my hand, and then walked into the kitchen with it. "You see that?" she said. We rewound. The chain looked wrong. The metal was thinner, shinier. Jazz grabbed a flashlight and the chain from the door now. The screw plates didn't match the wall paint. "This isn't the same chain you had in October," she said. The only person who'd touched that lock in months besides me was Tyler. The day in the stairwell when he'd offered to fix it. The next morning, I texted Marco, "Any chance you can help me reinstall a proper chain?" He came over with a drill and a short nod like we didn't have to talk about why. While he worked, he explained the checklist EMs give to patients prone to wandering. Secure exits, remove trip hazards, keep water by the bed so you don't go looking for it half asleep. Routine is armor, he said. You keep it, you're less likely to drift. I decided I was done drifting. I texted Tyler, "Spare key needs to be returned." Edgewater Park. Tomorrow. Daylight. He agreed too quickly. When we met, I left my phone recording in my pocket. I handed him a plain envelope with a copy of the write-up from work and the clip of him fixing the chain. "You could have just asked for your key," I said. "You're being dramatic," he said, doing that small laugh he used to get away with in public. "You've been unstable lately. I was just trying to help. By making my lock easier to open? You're imagining things, Riley." The recording caught all of it. That evening, I sent the file to Officer Bishop. She called me back the next day. "This is enough for a protection order," she said, "and the store can issue a no trespass notice." Within a week, both were in place. Tyler didn't come back. Meanwhile, Dr. Ford had my EEG results. Temporal lobe seizure activity confirmed. She explained it in human terms. Your brain sometimes short circuits in ways that make you act without remembering. Writing notes, opening doors, it's all possible. We adjusted my meds. She referred me to a therapist, Kara Mills, who specialized in people managing medical conditions and the mess life dumps on top. Kara's office had a plant I couldn't name and a bowl of cheap mints. She didn't ask, "How are you?" She said, "Tell me what you want to be different." "I don't want to feel like my own enemy," I said. She gave me homework. Keep a seizure log, but also log safe nights, no episodes, no missing time. Proof you're more than the worst moments, she said. 3 weeks into the new routine, I stayed alone for the first time. Check locks. Chain secure. Chair under knob. Water by bed. Cameras on. At 1:40 a.m., there was a flicker, an episode starting. I sat up, swung my legs over, and stopped. The chain stayed in place. No note. I lay back down. The next morning, I posted my story to Reddit. Not the Tyler parts. Not yet. Just the medical mystery. The notes. The missing time. The comments filled with people saying I thought I was the only one. A few said they'd book a doctor appointment that week. 2 days later, I came home to an envelope under my door. No name. Inside, a photocopy from Mrs. Benton's building log. 2 dates highlighted. Both were nights I was at work. Both listed. Attempted entry, male, no resident ID, left when approached. The description? Brown jacket, dark jeans, matching Tyler's usual outfit. It landed heavy, not as fear this time, but as confirmation. I hadn't imagined everything. Tyler had been trying to get in, even when my own brain was tripping me up. That night, I took the last sticky note out of my drawer and stuck it on the fridge. Big letters, permanent marker, locked, safe, sleep. I turned off the lights without checking the door a third time. I still have the cameras. I still keep the routine. But the thing I protect most now isn't my apartment. It's myself. Not with walls, with clarity. Some doors stay closed. Some firewalls stay up. Not out of fear, out of choice. If you've ever been the weird one, The overreactor, the one people side-eye when you trust your gut? Listen, sometimes the monster is just missing information. Sometimes it's a person who benefits from your confusion. And sometimes, like me, you get both at once. You learn to guard your nights. You learn to meet the part of yourself that wanders. And when the real threats knock, make sure you don't let them in. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want to share your stories, please comment below. Additionally, what is your opinion on the poster's decision?